Fadia, what a great concept for a digital color wheel. I like the way that you set the primaries and secondaries apart, leaving them isolated without any overlapping. Your RGB values are great. Now, with a painted color wheel, what a neat job. Your colors really do look good. There are a couple I want to look at though. With violet, it appears that perhaps the amount of white that was added was a little more than necessary. The object is to reveal the hue, but not to cause the color to look like a tint. And then with blue-green, it seems as though this might be cerulean by itself. I would like to see a blue-green that looked more like it was a mix of the blue on one side and the green on the other. Hi Tiro, looking at some of these painted color wheels, I have the distinct impression that people didn't expand all and read my notes at the outset of the art discussion. These violets should be lightened with the tiniest touch of white in order to reveal their hue. In fact, I do that with blue too, but not with a blue-green. In blue-green, I think we could use more blue, and that should actually be a cerulean. Green and yellow-green could be more different from each other, as is the case with some of those oranges. Looking at the digital color wheel, I can see you've got the idea. This is an informal composition. Most of those RGB values are close. However, cyan is a tone and it ought to be fully saturated. Hi Samantha, this digital color wheel is a zinger. I like the idea. I can see that you've got perfect RGB values with magenta and blue. And I think the other primaries and secondaries are close. It's a little hard to get the color picker in there to this solid color area. Notice that this design is not centered on its composition. That's something to think about for future. Now, looking at your painted color wheel, it appears you must have been in a hurry. The interval could be evened out with many of the colors seen there. Hi Melissa, taking a look at your digital color wheel, all of your RGB values for the primaries and secondaries are right on. The intermediate colors, however, are not all fully saturated. Now let's see, if you take a look at a drafts review that I posted in this discussion, you'll note an idea for temporary layer that can help you to lay out your shapes into a neat circle. Because this is almost a circle, I would take it all the way. Further, I'd omit stroke in Illustrator files, at least for the time being. Now, looking at your painted color wheel, well, some of the issues that we're usually working with don't seem to be apparent here. For instance, your green and your violet, why, they look just perfect, and your orange too. Now, you might be a good color mixer, or there's a chance that you had a tube of violet and a tube of green. If that's what you did, well, you missed part of the project here, because the struggle to create the colors from the primaries is part of what we were up to. Crystalline, lovely idea here for your digital color wheel. The RGB values for the primaries and secondaries are correct. With the intermediate colors, not all are fully saturated, I can tell just by eyeballing. It might be a good idea to somehow emphasize the primaries and secondaries. For instance, blue and green are a little hard to find. And then I would use the up, down, right, left keys to budge things into perfect position. Perhaps you'd like to zoom in at the same time. Looking at your painted color wheel, maybe with the blue we could use ultramarine in the mix. With the violet, add a tiny touch of white. With yellow, orange, and yellow green, more yellow is needed. Hello Erin, what a lovely idea for a design. Just looking at the gaps between shapes, let's check out violet and the green opposite it there in the middle, and notice the difference in black space between those shapes and their neighbors. Let's see, RGB values are pretty close for the primaries and secondaries. They don't seem to be precisely ideal, and all of your colors are fully saturated. Now, with a pink color wheel, I want to zero in on violet, which does not appear to have been mixed. Mixing violet is a job. It's not particularly easy, and part of the project here was to mix colors from primaries. I'd also like to draw attention to the interval with blue-green and between red-violet and red. Lauren, a super job with your digital color wheel. The RGB values for primaries and secondaries are right on, and intermediates are fully saturated. When I apply a couple of guides, I can see that things could be budged still into perfect position. Zoom in and use the up, down, right, left keys for that. Now, the painted color wheel, I'm looking at your green and it appears to be a tint, or maybe the paint was laid on very thinly. I would avoid tinting green using just a tiny touch of white with the violets to reveal the hue. Now, looking at the violets, I'm not sure you have the right red, which would be a quinacridone. And with your greens, I suggest using a cerulean. I think that there's a chance your colors could be managed a little more in terms of interval. However, this is a neat presentation. Linda, this is a great concept with a fleur-de-lis for your digital color wheel. RGB values for primaries and secondaries look good. Intermediate colors are almost all fully saturated. Check the oranges, please. You know, you are losing definition with some of these shapes, and I'm guessing you're in Photoshop using the paint bucket. I would set the paint bucket to 100% opacity and dump once. Also, you might like to confer with the Learning Center about techniques. With your painted color wheel, maybe there could be more interval between red and orange, and I'd check that blue-green. Perhaps you could be more blue. Perhaps resolution on this file could be greater. Hello, Helen. This is a fun idea with the digital color wheel. RGB values look good. I like the way that you've accentuated the primaries and secondaries, and I had a further idea on that. You'll see it there in pictures. At first, I thought, these light bulbs, why, they look a little bit like a fruit with seeds, and how could we improve upon that? Now, the painted color wheel has excellent interval and a very neat presentation. A couple of quick ideas. Could blue-green have more blue in it? Could the blue have more influence of ultramarine and less of cerulean? And with red-violet, could there be a better solution maybe with quinacridone? Catherine, your RGB values are right for the primaries and secondaries. However, those are hard to find here. They are not accentuated. And with some of your intermediates, the colors are not fully saturated. Please take more time and care with the layout of your design for future, and consider eliminating stroke until we get to week 5. With your painted color wheel, I did take a look at that earlier on. Check in the discussion for my notes there, and be sure to expand all and see the notes that I give at the outset of the assignment at the top. Hi, Katie. This is an unusual design. You've taken a variety of disparate shapes and assembled them neatly into a composition. I've applied guides and things look like they're lined up pretty well. Your colors are good. Now, with the painted color wheel, your violets are too dark. Add a tiny touch of white to reveal the hue. I'd even do that with ultramarine. In blue-green, I'd add a little more blue. And I would check to be sure that you have the best red for mixing violets as well. The red itself can be a combination of cadmium red light and quinacridone. Hello, Ashley. This is an attractive design for your digital color wheel. RGB values for primaries and secondaries are correct. With the intermediate colors, well, I encourage you to design for what the eye sees versus rely strictly on RGB values determined by math, for example. With your painted color wheel, I think you met with less success. The violets are very dark, and the greens, why, they're looking like army green. Also, with yellow orange, there could be more yellow. Be sure to expand all and see my directions at the start of the art discussions. Hi, Tina. Interestingly, there's one digital color wheel on top of another here. I'm not sure that that really works as well as it might. And there seems to be a lack of unity with the shapes. They are very different between one and the other. RGB values are almost perfect. With your painted color wheel, a lot of care was taken. This is a very nice presentation, and the interval is quite even. Let's take a look at the violets. Well, it might be that blue violet could have a tiny touch of white in it, and I'm not sure that you have the best red for the job, which would be a quinacridone. If we look to orange and yellow orange, perhaps there could be greater influence of red there.